President Obama's State of the Union speech sparks anger in Russia. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov decided to respond to Obama with some heated comments. Lavrov said that the U.S. considers themselves number one. He says the U.S. is isolating Russia by supporting democracy in Ukraine. Lavrov stated the Americans have taken the course of confrontation and do not assess their own steps critically at all. He also went on to say that Obama's speech shows that the U.S. is looking to dominate the world and not cooperate as equals. Russia and the United States have been at ends since the Ukraine crisis. Russia refuses to admit any ties to separatists in the Ukraine. The newest threat from the Islamic State has been condemned by Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. A video released by the group shows a black hooded man wielding a knife, threatening the lives of 2 kidnapped Japanese citizens. The man asked for $200 million in exchange for the release of the prisoners. Many critics of Abe have resented Japan's recent involvement in international affairs, claiming this is the result they had feared. Abe says that the lives of the Japanese captives were his top priority. The Prime Minister called the threats unacceptable.
IS released footage threatening to kill Japanese citizens. This is an unforgivable terrorist act, and Japanese citizens are feeling strong resentment over it.
Tragedy strikes in Tel Aviv after 10 people were stabbed on a bus. For more details, we turn to Gary Franchi.
Right now, police are treating this as a terror attack and have increased security in the area. 3 victims are in serious condition after a man wielding a knife attacked the driver and passengers. Witnesses say the bus driver fought back and pepper spray was used on the assailant, forcing him to flee. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says that this is, quote, the direct result of the poisonous incitement being disseminated by the Palestinian Authority against the Jews and their state. Netanyahu blames the leader of the Palestinian Authority, Mahmoud Abbas, for the attack. The Israeli government has accused multiple Palestinian groups of promoting violence in the country. Senior Hamas leader Izzat Rashik celebrated the attack, saying, quote, it's a natural response to the crimes of the occupation and terrorism against the Palestinian people, end quote. According to Israeli police, a pattern has been formed from recent attacks caused by individual Palestinians. Tensions continue to increase between Palestinians and Israelis since the conflicts in Gaza and Jerusalem in religious sites.
Protests against the French magazine Charlie Hebdo has caused violence in some areas. Pictures depicting the Prophet Muhammad in the publication has caused demonstrations in many parts of the world. Most of the protests have been peaceful, but reports coming out of Niger are deadly. At least 10 people have died, 173 people were injured, and buildings were destroyed in the country's capital. Pakistani police had to launch water cannons and tear gas on protesters after the mob moved towards the French embassy. One photographer was shot in the event. Peaceful protests have also taken place. Countries like Russia, Lebanon, and Mali all had large-scale demonstrations with no reported violence. A Malian-born Muslim man was given French citizenship after he saved multiple people during the recent Paris attacks. Lassana Bathily was working in the stockroom at the kosher supermarket Amity Kolobi gunned down. Bathily helped customers hide from the shooter in a cold storage room where they waited out the attack. Bathily says that he is proud and moved to become a citizen.
Tonight, I am very proud and deeply touched. I would like to thank those who always trusted me and supported me.
Top French ministers attended the ceremony honoring Bathily. French Prime Minister Manuel Valls spoke at the event, praising and thanking the new citizen for his bravery.
Today, the dream has come true, a little quicker than expected, because it's nice to make true the dreams of the brave, and because the nation likes to welcome new citizens like you. You express the desire to take up its values and who want to share its collective project.
Some of the most promising talks in 35 years have begun between the U.S. and Cuba. Most recent discussions are aimed at outlining long-term goals. Some of these talks will include the 53-year-old economic embargo on Cuba, along with human rights quality and immigration. Although restoring diplomatic ties is an executive authority Obama can pass, the president will need Congress's support to lift the economic embargo. During Obama's State of the Union address, he said, "We are ending a policy that was long past due."
We are ending a policy that was long past its expiration date.
China's crackdown on government corruption has led to some animosity between political leaders. Zhao Yongkang was one of the highest-ranking officials to be arrested for grafting in the country. Now Chinese domestic security chief Meng Zhenzhou is speaking out against his predecessor. According to a state-run paper, Zhenzhou says that the former leader's desire for money, power, and the sex trade was detrimental to ruling the Communist Party. Many of Zhao's former associates have also had charges filed against them. Multiple high-profile arrests have been made since Chinese President Xi Jinping's campaign against corruption began. Protesters rocked the streets of Haiti's capital city as a new group of government officials are sworn in. Demonstrators have called for the resignation of President Michel Barnier. The president is being accused of abusing his power and causing a political standstill in order to continue his rule over the country. Many of his opponents also say Barnier used the 2010 earthquake disaster to gain more political gain. As an attempt to appease the opposition, the president has sworn in Prime Minister Evans Paul. Barnier says that this was for the goodwill of the opposition. After running in the 2006 Haiti presidential elections, Paul only gained 2% of the vote. Now the prime minister takes the lead in the consensus government.